At 3 in the morning, I caught her on the porch with her shoes in her hands. She was trying to slip away, and when I asked why, she whispered, "If I stay, I'll on." The October wind cut straight through my flannel shirt as I leaned on the old fence post, watching my 6-year-old twins chase each other across the wheat field. Lily's pigtails bounced as she tore ahead, while Rose stopped every few feet to pick up a rock or flower that caught her eye. "Daddy, look what I found," Rose called out, holding up a smooth river stone like it was treasure. I smiled, tugging my baseball cap lower over my face. I was 34, raising those girls alone ever since their mother, Sarah, walked out when they were barely born. The Morrison Ranch in Montana had been my safe place, and theirs. Out here, we had land, horses, and enough peace to stitch together a decent life. But as we reached the stretch of fence that bordered Highway 89, my smile faded. There was someone slumped against the post. A woman. Her clothes were filthy and torn, her long auburn hair matted with dust. Blood trickled down from a cut above her eyebrow, and 20 yards away, an SUV sat crumpled in the ditch, steam rolling from its hood. "Stay back, girls," I ordered, my voice firmer than I meant it to be. The woman lifted her head, and I stopped short. Even banged up and pale, she was striking, her green eyes flashing with a mix of pain and fear. "Ma'am, are you hurt? I'm Jack Morrison. This is my land." She tried to stand but grimaced, holding her left arm tight against her ribs. I'm Emma. Emma Sterling. My car." She gestured weakly toward the wreck. That name hit me. Everybody in Montana knew the Sterlings. Oil money, real estate, empire builders. But right then she didn't look like someone out of the society pages. She looked like a woman who needed help. "We need to get you to a hospital," I said, reaching for my phone. "No," she cut me off, panicked. "No hospitals, no police. Please, I just need somewhere safe to think." There was a desperation in her voice I couldn't ignore. Lily and Rose had crept closer, curiosity winning out over caution. "Is the pretty lady hurt?" Lily whispered. Emma's expression softened the moment she looked at my daughters. "Hello, beautiful girls. What are your names?" "I'm Lily, and that's Rose." "We're 6, Lily said proudly. "Daddy, can we help her?" Rose asked, her big brown eyes fixed on Emma. I looked at Emma again. Whatever fear she carried, it vanished when she looked at my girls. For a second, she seemed less like a stranger and more like a wounded animal desperate for kindness. "The farmhouse is just over that hill," I said finally. "You can clean up, and we'll figure out what comes next." As I helped her to her feet, I had no idea that one simple decision, letting her into my home, was about to change all our lives. The Morrison farmhouse sat like it always had, white clapboard siding and a red brick chimney against the wide Montana sky. Lily and Rose raced ahead to open the screen door while I steadied Emma on the steps. "Careful on that bottom one," I warned. Been loose for 3 years. Inside, the place smelled of wood smoke and cinnamon. Family photos lined the mantel above the fireplace, and the fridge was plastered with the girls' drawings. Nothing fancy, just home. "Sit here," I told Emma, guiding her to the kitchen table while I dug around in the cabinets for the first aid kit. When I came back, she was studying the photos spread across the table, me and the twins at the county fair, the girls building a snowman. "Where's their mother?" she asked quietly. My jaw tightened. "Sarah left when they were babies. Said ranch life wasn't what she signed up for. Haven't heard from her since." I cleaned the cut on her forehead as gently as I could. "That must have been tough," she said softly. "We managed just fine." The words came out steady, but even I could hear the old hurt in them. Rose appeared beside Emma, clutching her ragged teddy bear. "This is Mr. Buttons. He makes everything better when you're hurt." Emma's eyes shimmered as she took the bear. "Thank you, sweetie. He's perfect. Can you stay for dinner?" Lily piped up. "Daddy makes the best grilled cheese in Montana." Emma gave me a half smile. "You're welcome to stay until you're ready to face whatever you need to face," I said. For the first time since I'd laid eyes on her, she looked almost safe. But something in the tightness of her shoulders told me safety was something she hadn't felt in a long time. Morning always comes early on the ranch. I'd been up since 5, checking the horses and running through the day's work in my head, but that day felt different. The air seemed sharper, my steps quicker, like something had shifted overnight. Emma was still upstairs in the guest room. Judging by the dark circles she had when I found her, it was the first decent sleep she'd had in a long while. The girls had begged her to stay, and I'll admit, I was glad they did. A part of me wanted her to rest as long as she needed. Over breakfast, Rose asked with her mouth full of syrup, "Daddy, is Miss Emma going to live with us now?" "She's just visiting, sweetheart," I told her, pouring coffee. "She's got her own life to get back to." "But what if she likes it here better?" Lily argued with 6-year-old logic. "Maybe she could be our new mommy." I nearly choked on my coffee. "Girls, that's not how things work." Before I could explain further, Emma stepped into the kitchen doorway. She wore one of my old flannel shirts over her ripped clothes, her hair pulled back in a ponytail. No makeup, no polish, just her, and I swear my heart skipped. "Morning," she said softly. "I hope you don't mind me borrowing this." "Not at all. Coffee's hot, and I can make you breakfast." She accepted the mug I poured, inhaling deeply. "I can't remember the last time I woke up without an alarm clock." "What do you do for work?" Lily asked straight out, like kids do. Emma hesitated, then said, "I run a company that helps people with their money. Kind of like a bank." Rose tilted her head. "Like a piggy bank." "Something like that," Emma said, smiling. But I noticed how carefully she'd dodged the question. People only talk that vague when they're either lying or hiding. Given who she was, I guessed it was trouble. "The phone company's supposed to fix our landline today," I told her casually. "You can call anyone you need." A shadow crossed her face. "Actually, I was hoping to stay off the grid for a few more days." "Is that possible? Are you in some kind of trouble?" I asked. Her hands trembled as she set her cup down. "It's complicated. Most things worth doing usually are," I said. That answer seemed to surprise her. In her world, I bet no one ever gave it to her straight like that. She looked at me, then at my girls, who were listening with wide eyes. "There are people very angry with me right now. I made decisions that didn't sit well with them." "Good decisions or bad ones?" I asked. "The right ones," she said firmly. "But that doesn't always matter." Rose leaned forward. "Will the angry people hurt you?" Emma knelt down, meeting her eyes. "I hope not, sweetie. But sometimes grown-ups have to be careful about who they trust." "You can trust Daddy," Lily blurted. "He saved a baby bird once, and he always keeps his promises." Emma's eyes met mine over their heads. For a moment, the weight in her expression lifted, replaced by something I hadn't seen before, belief. The rest of the day passed in the steady rhythm of ranch life. Emma sat on the porch swing while I fixed a section of fence. The girls helped, mostly by sorting nails and giving me advice I didn't need. "You're good with them," I told Emma when I joined her for a water break. "They're special," she said, watching Rose carefully bandage a doll while Lily built a fort for her toy horses. "You've done an amazing job raising them alone." "Some days I wonder if they're missing out without a mother figure," I admitted. "They're learning kindness, imagination, and independence. That's more than most kids get." Her words hit me harder than I let on. Then I asked the question that had been on my mind. "What about you? Any kids?" For a long time she was quiet. Finally, she said, "I was engaged. 3 years ago. We were planning everything. A wedding, children, a house in the suburbs. I thought I had it all figured out." "What happened?" I asked gently. Her jaw tightened. "His name was David. He was stealing from me. Millions. When I found out, he twisted it around, made me look like the one who couldn't be trusted. When I turned him in, he went to prison. But his family, they're powerful. They've been trying to ruin me ever since." I felt my chest tighten. "That's who you're running from?" "Partly. There's more." Her voice dropped. "Some of my own employees were involved. People I trusted. When I started digging, I uncovered something bigger, a conspiracy to take over my entire company. And now, I don't know who I can trust anymore." I reached out and set my hand over hers. Just a simple touch, but I meant it. "You don't have to face it alone anymore." She looked at me like no one had said those words to her in years. And in that moment, I knew letting her walk away wasn't going to be easy. That night the storm rolled in hard, rattling the windows and shaking the barn doors. After dinner, the power flickered, and we lit a couple of old kerosene lamps. Rose announced she loved storms because they made everything feel cozy, and Emma smiled like she hadn't in years. Watching her laugh with the girls over dishes, I almost forgot she'd shown up broken and terrified less than 2 days earlier. Almost. But every time her hand drifted to the pocket of her borrowed flannel, I knew the weight of that hidden phone was pulling her back to the life she was running from. When I came in from checking the horses, she was curled up on the couch between Lily and Rose, Both of them snuggled against her as a Disney movie played. She looked more like a mother than a millionaire fugitive, but her eyes kept flicking toward the window whenever the wind gusted. An hour later, after bedtime stories and goodnight hugs, I found her standing at the kitchen window, staring out at the rain. "I need to tell you something," she said without turning. I leaned against the doorframe. "Go ahead. They found my car. It's only a matter of time before they trace me here. I can't stay." I shook my head. "Then we'll deal with it. You don't understand. These people will destroy everything just to get to me. I won't let them touch your life. Or your girls. You're not facing this alone anymore." My voice was firmer than I expected. She looked at me then, and I saw fear and something else. The kind of heartbreak that comes from believing no one will ever stand beside you. "I have to leave tonight," she whispered. "No." The word came out like a command. Her eyes filled, but she didn't argue. She just walked past me, quiet as a shadow, and disappeared up the stairs. I stayed awake in the kitchen, listening to the storm, knowing she'd try to slip out. Sure enough, around 3 in the morning, I heard the creak of the stairs. I stepped out onto the porch as she crossed the yard, her shoes in her hand, moving like someone carrying both guilt and resolve. "Going somewhere?" I asked. She froze, caught like a thief. "You were supposed to be asleep." Hard to sleep when you know someone you care about is about to do something dangerous and stupid. "It's not stupid," she argued. "It's necessary. If I stay, they'll come here. They'll rip apart your life. Let them come." She shook her head, tears streaking down her cheeks. "You don't know what you're saying. These people have resources, no conscience. They've already killed to keep their secrets." I walked down the steps until I was standing right in front of her. "Emma, do you trust me?" Her breath caught. For a moment, the storm was the only sound. "I do. But this isn't about trust. It's about keeping you and the girls safe." "Then trust me to do that," I said, resting my hands gently on her shoulders. "Trust me to help you fight this the right way." "There is no right way. I've been running for days trying to find a solution that doesn't exist." "Maybe that's because you've been running alone." Her resolve wavered. I could see it. Then headlights appeared on the road below. A truck engine rumbled closer. She stepped back. "That's my ride." "I know," I said calmly. "I called him." Her eyes went wide. "What?" A black pickup pulled into my drive, and out climbed Marcus Chun, compact, sharp-eyed, the kind of man who moved like a soldier even when standing still. "Marcus," she breathed. Relief, anger, and disbelief tangled in her voice. He walked up, scanning everything in one sweep. "Miss Sterling, are you injured?" Emma's voice shook. "I'm fine." "Marcus, this is Jack Morrison." The two of us sized each other up like men do when both think they're responsible for the same person. After a moment, he stuck out his hand. "Thank you for keeping her safe. It's what we do for family around here," I said, gripping his hand firm. Emma's eyes filled at that word, family. Marcus wasted no time. "They've escalated. There was an attempted break-in at your apartment. Your assistant's car was vandalized. They're getting desperate, which means they'll make mistakes," I said. Emma shook her head, but I could see the fight returning to her posture. She glanced between us, then asked Marcus, "Do you have everything?" He nodded. "I've got a plan, but we'll need the evidence you told me about. The safety deposit box in Denver." My jaw set. "Then that's where we're going." Emma blinked at me. "We?" "Jack, you can't. I'm not letting you out of my sight until this is over." The three of us stood there in the wet grass, dawn creeping into the horizon, and I realized my quiet life had just turned into something else entirely. A fight I didn't ask for, but couldn't walk away from. The drive to Denver took us 8 long hours. Marcus followed in his own vehicle, never more than a few car lengths behind. I'd left the girls with my brother Tom, telling them Daddy had to help Miss Emma with something important. Rose's lip trembled when she asked when I'd be back. I promised it wouldn't be long. God help me, I intended to keep that promise. Emma sat in my passenger seat, staring out the window as the mountains rose around us. Her hand kept tightening into a fist on her lap, then relaxing. She looked like a woman bracing for impact. "Tell me about this box," I said finally, breaking the silence. "First National Bank in Denver," she answered. "I rented it under my grandmother's maiden name. Only my lawyer knew about it. Patricia Hoffman. She's been family counsel for 15 years. She paused, her voice hardening. "Or at least she used to be someone I trusted." "You still trust her?" I asked. Emma shook her head. "Not anymore. I've learned the hard way not to trust anyone fully. Except us," I said quietly. Her eyes flicked to mine, softer this time. Except you. We reached Denver as the sun dropped low, shadows cutting across the skyline. Marcus had booked us into a small boutique hotel under assumed names, paying cash for everything. No paper trail, no mistakes. The man was good, I'll give him that. We hit the bank at 9 sharp, he said as we spread a map across the hotel desk. Jack, you stay across the street with eyes on all exits. Emma and I go in. Not a chance, I said immediately. Marcus frowned. You're not trained for this. I don't need training to protect what matters to me. Emma's hand brushed mine. Jack, please. Marcus is right. I leaned closer, my voice steady. It became my fight the moment you walked into my life. I'm not staying outside while you walk into danger. She didn't argue after that. At 9 the next morning, we stepped through the polished glass doors of First National Bank. Emma wore a plain black coat, her auburn hair tucked back, but she still stood out. Elegance always does. Marcus moved beside her like a shadow, one hand near his jacket. I stayed close enough to watch, far enough to avoid drawing attention. Down in the vault, the place was too quiet. The clerk led us to the row of boxes, polite but stiff, like he already knew what was about to happen. Emma slipped the ruby ring from the chain around her neck, her grandmother's. It was the key to the box. The lock clicked, and inside sat stacks of files, hard drives, and recordings. Proof of everything she'd been digging into for years. It's all here, she breathed, sliding the evidence into Marcus's briefcase. Relief softened her shoulders for the first time since I'd met her. But just as they turned, the elevator doors opened. Patricia Hoffman stepped out, flanked by 2 men in suits flashing FBI badges. Her face carried a sad smile, like someone already rehearsing regret. Emma, she said, I'm sorry it's come to this. Emma's body went rigid. How long have you been working for them? Longer than you think, Patricia admitted, her voice low. David's family had leverage. Mistakes I made years ago. They wanted someone close to you. Someone you trusted completely. Emma's jaw clenched. So you helped him steal from me? No, Patricia said sharply. I never touched a dime. I thought it was over when you exposed him. But then they wanted more. They wanted you ruined. And when you kept digging into the others, her eyes flickered with something that almost looked like shame. They threatened my daughter's children. I had no choice. You always have a choice. Emma snapped, though I could hear the hurt more than anger. Patricia had been like family to her. Patricia's face hardened, and she nodded to the agents. Emma Sterling, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, money laundering, and racketeering. The clink of handcuffs echoed through the vault. Emma didn't resist, but her eyes searched Marcus's. He gave the smallest nod, a silent signal. Phase 2. I slipped out of the lobby before anyone noticed me. Outside, I backed my truck toward the fire hydrant across the street. One sharp nudge with my bumper, and water exploded into the air, soaking everything in sight. Sirens, horns, and shouting filled the block within seconds. The agents hustling Emma out barely had time to react when Marcus pulled her sideways toward a service exit I'd scouted earlier. Within 30 seconds, she was free of the cuffs, and the briefcase was already secured. By the time I swung around the block, they came sprinting out of the alley. Marcus shoved the briefcase into the bed of my truck while Emma dove into the passenger seat. Go, 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 Marcus barked. I punched the gas, weaving into traffic while chaos boiled behind us. Emma's breathing came fast and shallow, but she still clutched that briefcase like it was life itself. We didn't stop until the city skyline disappeared behind the mountains. Only then did Emma speak, her voice low, almost broken. She betrayed me. Patricia was supposed to be family. I kept my eyes on the road, jaw tight. Then we fight with the family you've got now. The cabin Marcus led us to sat tucked high in the Rockies, the kind of place you'd never notice unless you were looking for it. Stocked with supplies, wired with communications gear. It was clear Marcus had been planning for a fight long before Emma ever crashed into my life. Inside, the 3 of us gathered around the kitchen table. Marcus laid out the contents of the briefcase: hard drives, documents, recordings. Emma stared at it like it was both her salvation and her curse. You knew Patricia would betray me, she said finally. Marcus didn't flinch. I suspected. Too many loose ends led back to her. He held up a hard drive labeled insurance policy. This has recordings of every conversation you ever had with Patricia. Enough proof to show she was being blackmailed. Emma blinked. I never recorded those. I did, Marcus said. Standard security in your offices. You signed off on it years ago. Her eyes softened, just a little. You've been protecting me longer than I realized. It's called loyalty, he replied. I watched the exchange, admiring his foresight but also noticing the way Emma looked at me afterward. Like she wasn't sure whether to cry or breathe for the first time. What's our next move? I asked. We release everything to the media, Marcus said. Simultaneously, to multiple outlets. Once it's public, no one can bury it. Emma nodded, but before we could plan further, headlights cut across the window. Engines crunched up the gravel outside. Lights out, Marcus ordered. He killed the lantern, plunging us into darkness. Away from the windows. I pulled Emma behind the heavy oak dining table. Marcus moved to the door, weapon ready. Through the curtains, I saw them. 3 black SUVs circling the cabin. A loudspeaker cracked on. Emma Sterling. This is Agent Sarah Chun with the FBI. We have the cabin surrounded. Come out with your hands visible. Emma's blood drained. Chun, she whispered. Marcus went rigid. Sarah, that's my sister. The betrayal hit me like a hammer. Emma looked at him carefully. How long has she been with the Bureau? 8 years, he said, his voice raw. Emma, I swear, I had no idea she was involved. I studied his face in the dim light. My gut told me he was telling the truth. Then it explains how they've been one step ahead, I muttered. The loudspeaker boomed again. Emma, we know you have evidence. Work with us, and we can protect you. It's a trap, Marcus hissed. Emma's mind was racing. What if it's not? What if she's clean? If she's the one honest agent left? You're willing to bet your life on that? I asked. She looked at me, eyes steady. I can't keep running while innocent people sit in jail because of evidence they twisted out of my case files. If there's a chance Sarah Chun is real, I have to take it. No way, I said firmly. Not alone. Then we all go, she said. So we did. We stepped out into the floodlights, hands raised. Emma clutching the briefcase like a lifeline. A woman in a dark FBI jacket approached. Same sharp eyes as Marcus, same deliberate movements. Miss Sterling, are you injured? She asked. I'm fine, Emma said. But I need to know, are you here to arrest me or hear the truth? Sarah's jaw tightened. The truth is half this field office is compromised. I've been running my own investigation, and nothing adds up. She glanced at Marcus. When my brother went dark 3 days ago, I knew something was wrong. Marcus stepped forward. I'm sorry I couldn't tell you. You were protecting your client, Sarah said. I get it. Then she turned back to Emma. But Patricia Hoffman, she was murdered 6 hours ago, staged as a suicide. I saw the scene myself. She was going to confess. Emma's knees nearly buckled. Patricia, the woman who'd been like a mother to her, forced into betrayal, now dead because she tried to make it right. I have recordings, Emma said, her voice cracking but steady. Proof she was coerced. Proof the arrests were fabricated. Proof of a conspiracy. Sarah's eyes hardened. Then we end this tonight. But first, we move you somewhere safe. Because if Morrison and his people know you're alive with this evidence, they'll do whatever it takes to silence you. I wrapped my arm around Emma's shoulders, pulling her close. For the first time, she leaned into it without resistance. The fight wasn't just about her anymore. It was about truth, corruption, and keeping my girls safe. And now, with allies inside the FBI, we might finally have a chance. The Denver field office looked like a fortress that night. Sarah Chun moved with authority, gathering the handful of agents she trusted. Every document, every recording, every word would be logged and duplicated. No shadows, no missing files. Emma sat at the center of it all, the briefcase emptied across the conference table. Hard drives, ledgers, voice recordings, pieces of a puzzle that, if put together right, could bring down an empire of corruption. This is Patricia Hoffman's voice, Emma said, playing one of the recordings Marcus had saved. Patricia admitted how David's family had blackmailed her, how she was threatened into framing executives who weren't guilty. Then another file, Patricia talking with someone she only called the partner. My gut clenched when the tech guys enhanced the audio and matched the voice. Deputy Director James Morrison, Sarah said grimly. The name hit me like a steel beam. Morrison, my family name. Sarah's eyes narrowed. He's been overseeing this investigation from the start. That explains how they've stayed ahead of us. Emma sat back, pale. So he's not just corrupt. He's orchestrating all of it, using FBI resources to crush me and protect the real criminals. Before I could speak, my phone rang. Tom's name lit the screen. My chest tightened. He never called this late. Tom? What's wrong? His voice shook. Jack, some federal agents came to the ranch an hour ago. Said they had orders to take the girls into protective custody until your situation is resolved. My heart stopped. Tell me you didn't let them. I didn't have a choice, he said quickly. They had paperwork, badges, the whole damn show. Said the girls would be safer with them. My knuckles went white around the phone. Where did they take them? They wouldn't say. Jack, what the hell is happening? I could barely breathe. They had my daughters. Emma reached for my arm, her face stricken. Jack, they took Lily and Rose, I said, barely choking the words out. The room erupted in movement. Sarah barked orders. Agents scrambled to trace the so-called custody order. Marcus's jaw was clenched like stone. If Morrison has those girls, Marcus said, his voice low, this isn't just corruption anymore. It's a hostage situation. Emma stood, her voice shaking but firm. Then I'll turn myself in. If that's what he wants, I'll give it to him in exchange for the girls. No, I snapped. You're not sacrificing yourself. Tears welled in her eyes. Jack, this is my mess. They're innocent children. If giving Morrison what he wants keeps them safe, then there is no deal with men like him. I cut her off, my voice louder than I intended. He won't stop until he's buried you, and then he'll use my girls to finish the job. Sarah stepped in, her voice steady but urgent. We've got 6 hours until dawn. That's how long we have to build an airtight case strong enough to blow this wide open. If we can nail Morrison publicly before he moves, he loses his leverage. And if we can't? I asked. Sarah's eyes didn't waver. Then we tear the system apart to get those girls back. The room fell silent, the weight of her words pressing on all of us. Outside, the first hints of dawn crept over Denver. And somewhere in the dark, Lily and Rose, my little girls, were waking up in a place that wasn't home, surrounded by strangers. I clenched my fists until my nails bit into my palms. This wasn't about corruption or conspiracies anymore. This was personal, and I'd burn the whole damn house down if that's what it took to bring them back. We rolled into Morrison's place like a thunderhead. Sarah had the warrant. Marcus had the perimeter. Me, I had nothing but a truck, a bad temper, and every inch of love I'd ever had for my girls. The ranch was bigger than ours, polished and private, the kind of place that says power before you even meet the man who lives there. Deputies in suits milled near the gate, looking too comfortable for men who were supposed to be on the right side of the law. My stomach turned. We walked up the long drive with our hands empty, and Emma held the briefcase under her arm like it was a talisman. She kept glancing at me, and I kept telling myself to breathe slow. For her, for the girls. Morrison waited on his porch, the picture of a respectable official in a pressed jacket and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Miss Sterling, he called, voice smooth. You've made quite a mess. Where are my children? Emma said, and her voice had a cold edge I hadn't heard before. Morrison shrugged with the same easy civility. They're safe, Miss Sterling. In my care. You made enemies, and good men protect what's theirs. Sarah stepped forward, badge out. James Morrison, you're under arrest for conspiracy, corruption, kidnapping, and murder. His smile wavered, the first crack. Agent Chun, you have no authorization. I felt something like rage tighten in my chest. You got authorization from a judge an hour ago, Marcus said. We've got audio, financials, and witnesses. Morrison kept talking like he could talk his way out of anything. And then Emma, God bless her, pulled out a little recorder and played it. His confession filled the air, blunt and clear as a hammer blow. He didn't even try to hide it. For a second he lunged, the way men with too much to lose do. Then the handcuffs closed on his wrists, and he was just a man in a suit being led down his own steps. The deputies who'd looked comfortable before shifted uncomfortably as the weight of the room changed. Where are my girls? I asked before I realized I'd barked it like a dog. Morrison's jaw tightened. In the barn. With the caretakers. They were never harmed. I wanted leverage. His voice was small all of a sudden. I didn't wait. I ran. The barn door slammed behind me, and for a heartbeat, I didn't know if it was a dream. Two little figures in pajamas, eyes huge, seeing me and then launching like rockets the moment they recognized Daddy. Lily and Rose barreled into my arms, sticky syrup and all, and the world that had been on fire settled down like a church bell. Daddy, they shouted in perfect harmony, faces bright and wet. I checked them. Knees, arms, breath, everything was there. I held them until my arms ached and didn't let go. Emma came in slow, hands folded, like she was afraid to break the moment by breathing too loud. She knelt and Lily climbed into her lap like they'd done it 100 times. Rose tucked her head in against Emma's shoulder like she'd found the safest place on earth. We stood there in the sawdust and afternoon light, a messy little family glued back together by luck and stubbornness, and a whole lot of other people who decided to do the right thing. Outside, agents were moving through property, taking statements, copying files off servers. The investigation would take months, lawsuits, hearings, names dragged into courtrooms. People's lives would be ruined, some deservedly, some because the machine chewed them up to show motion. But the important thing right then was the three small faces pressed into my chest. Emma looked up at me, and for the first time since she'd limped onto my fence, she didn't look frightened. She looked like someone who had been given a second chance. "You brought them back," she said simply. "You brought me back," I answered, because it was true in ways neither of us could have predicted. We walked back to the house together that evening, the kids between us, and I felt the slow, steady things settle in my ribs. Not closure, not by a long shot, but a real start. The fight did not end on that porch. It would roll out in courtrooms and headlines and long meetings. But we had what mattered most: the girls, a stake in the truth, and people who had learned how to stand when it counted. 6 months later, life on the ranch looked the same from the outside. The same white siding, the same red chimney, the same worn porch boards that creaked under my boots. But for us, everything had changed. The girls were louder, happier. They woke up each morning asking if Miss Emma was still here, and every morning she was, usually already in the kitchen with flour on her hands and that easy smile that made the place feel lighter. That afternoon, Lily and Rose were standing on stools, fighting over who got to dump the sugar into the cookie dough. Emma stood between them, her hair tied back with a bit of ribbon Lily had insisted looked fancy. Flour streaked across her cheek, where Rose's little hand had smacked her during a giggle fit. I leaned against the doorframe, just watching. I'd spent years trying to keep everything together for my daughters, thinking the best I could offer was stability. But watching Emma with them, I realized they needed more than just a steady hand. They needed someone who filled the room with warmth. She gave them that without even trying. "Are you sure this is what you want?" I asked later, when the girls had run outside to chase the barn cats and Emma and I stood by the sink, washing the mess off our hands. She turned, leaning against the counter. "I've never been more sure of anything. I spent years building an empire, thinking that was enough. But it wasn't a home. Here, I have a home." Her words landed deep, the way only the truth can. Sterling Industries had been rebuilt with new leadership and new standards. Emma had stepped back from the spotlight, letting people she trusted take over the day-to-day. She said she wanted to focus on what actually matters, and I knew she meant us: me, Lily, and Rose. That evening we sat on the porch, the four of us lined up with the horizon burning orange and purple. The girls ran barefoot in the grass, trying to catch fireflies in empty mason jars. Emma leaned her head against my shoulder, and I wrapped my arm around her without thinking twice. "You know," I said, "6 months ago I thought my life was already written. Ranch, girls, maybe a quiet end. Then you crashed into my fence." She laughed softly. "Literally." "Literally," I echoed. Silence stretched between us, the kind that doesn't need to be filled. The girls shrieked with laughter in the yard. The sun sank low, and for the first time in longer than I could remember, I felt rich. Not the kind of rich that makes headlines or buys penthouses, but the kind of rich a man feels when he has a family he'd give everything for. I looked down at Emma, her eyes catching the last bit of light, and I knew, whatever storms came next, we'd face them together. And that, I realized, was the real treasure she'd brought into my life.